And welcome into another episode of the Outsider Sports Hockey Podcast. I'm Ben Mandel, joined by Tom Leone and Mike Dykunzek. Last division to dive into, it's the Pacific, as we look at maybe one of the worst divisions, or maybe most top-heavy divisions that we see in the NHL. You have the defending Cup champs in the Vegas Golden Knights that are the defending division champs as well, but you also have arguably two of the worst teams from last season in this division, in the Anaheim Ducks and San Jose Sharks. So, guys, let's dive right into the Ducks, right? This is a team that has talent. They shouldn't be as bad as they are. When you have a Troy Terry, a Trevor Zegras, Mason McTavish, John Gibson in goal, Cam Fowler still a talented defenseman, this team shouldn't be as bad as they are. Also, not to mention the fact they signed Alex Killorn. So that's another big move. Guys, what are the Ducks? Are they going to be good? John Gibson, apparently they had all of the rumors this summer about how he wasn't going to play for the Ducks again. He's still there. They didn't trade him. What are the Anaheim Ducks? Is this a team that's going to be more competitive this year? Are they going to be good, or are they just going to be the same bad team?
I think they're going to compete this year. You know, a couple of guys that Ben you didn't mention, along with the guys that you did mention that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you got depth guys like Ryan Strome and Frank Vertrano. Like I watched them play a lot when they were on the Rangers. They're just solid players, right? They're just solid veteran players that are going to give you what they got every night. And I just think they'll improve. I don't know what it was last year. I don't know if it was a coaching thing or maybe just because the division, the top heavy teams in the division are just so good. But I think they improved this year. I think they finished middle of the pack. I think Gibson has kind of a revelation year, right? Kind of you see that from older goalies where they just kind of turn it on out of nowhere. I think he has a revelation year. I think they get more production out of Strome, Vetrano in their second year in Anaheim. Like a guy like Killorn, another winning culture guy in there. I think they improve dramatically, and I think they finish middle of the pack. I don't think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but I think they're definitely not going to finish bottom in the division again.
Do you think that's a Palat-like move where they bring him in to try and get the younger guys going? Because I think
I
the thing
agree.
with Anaheim, like you do also still have an Adam Henrique and a Jakob Silverberg, like Leo Carlson's here, the young kid that they drafted second overall as well.
Too many
There are
names on
some
that roster to be that bad.
exactly right. Like this is a team that should not be bad. Now, Mike, what are your thoughts on the Ducks? I know Adam Henrique has been gone for so long now. It feels like, he's just always been a Duck. But,
It's crazy how long
yeah,
it's been.
right? And it's
It's
so
nuts.
upsetting. It was right as they were turning the corner again, too. Or at least it felt like
The
they were
last
turning the
time,
corner
the last
again.
time that we've seen happiness, right, Ben? But
Yeah. Henrique, it's over.
um, gotta get Tom rolling this early Sunday morning. But I think when it comes to the Ducks, I think they're banking on their youngsters to hit their prime eventually, and I think that's why I don't have them. I think they're going to compete. I think it's a 2024 and 2025. I think that's when the youngsters of the team are going to hit their prime. But I think they're veteran guys like their goalie John Gibson, Henrique, Silverberg. I think these are guys that aren't going to be on this team much longer, and I just think they're going to be asking for trades, want to be with playoff bound teams because their contracts are ending. So I think they're banking on the youngsters to come up and show out, but I just think that they're just not there yet, and that's why I don't have them in a playoff position this year. But I think the future is bright for Anaheim, though.
Yeah, I think with Anaheim, they actually really do remind me of the New Jersey Devils from last year. Not necessarily the New Jersey Devils from 2 years ago, because the Devils didn't have goaltending. Otherwise, they probably would have been a playoff team 2 years ago. That's when Jack Hughes started to make the jump. We're going to see another jump from Trevor Zegras, guys. I think he's going to continue to get better. The guy's an RFA after 2026. That means he hasn't gotten paid yet. Troy Terry has gotten paid. He's ready to play. He's ready to do his thing, make his moves. Mason McTavish, another guy, who was drafted in 21, RFA after 2025. So, McTavish, another guy who's going to play and try to show out. But the guys like Frank Vetrano, Jakob Silverberg, Andrew Agozzino, these are veteran players. Brock McGinn, who are going to come in here and help bring a winning culture in for these young guys. Alex Killorn, I know he's hurt right now. They also brought in Radko Gudas. Alex Stalock, he's a solid backup goalie, to be honest with you. But I do agree with Tom, where John Gibson's going to have a revelation type year, kind of like a Marc-Andre Fleury first year in Vegas type of year, I feel like. So on to the next team, though, because this is another team that was pretty bad last year, but I don't know. I feel pretty optimistic for them this year as well. I think it can't be as bad as it was before. A lot of guys on this team have expiring contracts either this year or the next year. So it's decision time in this rebuild for the San Jose Sharks. They were able to trade for Devils goaltender Mackenzie Blackwood. He will be an unrestricted free agent after 2025. Kaapo Kakkonen is still expected to be the starting goaltender, but those two will rotate. Defensively, you have veteran defenseman Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Outside of that, I don't really like anybody there, and Vlasic is still fairly old. You have a solid fourth line in Sturm, LeBlanc, and Fabian Zetterlund. Anthony Duclair is a solid piece to have on your third line. Mikael Granlund, along with Mike Hoffman on the second line. And the top line, it should be dangerous with Eklund, Hurdle, and Barabanov. But, Mike, I know with the Sharks, they've got a couple of former Devils. There's the big Timo Meier trade last year, so they have some pieces that will be coming into the roster as well over the next couple of years as they pan out for that trade. But what are your thoughts on the Sharks? Do you think the Sharks are going to be this year's Anaheim, or do you think that they're going to be a little bit better with some of their offseason moves?
I think they're definitely going to be, this year's Anaheim. I just think with them, they're definitely in full rebuild, right? The management though, they'll be happy with some of these younger players coming in on their own. And I know they just had an early draft pick this year, and I think it's Will Smith, right? And he's playing at Boston College this upcoming year, right? So he's not even going to be there, with his position, but. I just think that, this team can be competitive, but I think they're going to lose far more often than they win. Right. And I think the future is going to be brighter for past years with another young team and their talent. But I just think there are too many potholes for them, for this upcoming season. I definitely see them finishing last in this division, unfortunately. But another team, though, that I could definitely see in the future being good, though.
Yeah, I agree with Mike's. I think it's it's about the lottery next year for them. I think guys like similar to, I forgot the team that I mentioned. Oh, Philly, getting, the best out of their veterans so they can trade them, like a Logan Couture, right? Or even a Hurdle, right? Like get the most out of them and then just let these young guys play and get time on the ice and really use David Quinn for what he's good at and or what he's supposed to be good at, and is developing young players, and use pieces like Duclair for your future. Use players like maybe they can get the best out of Blackwood. Like, you never know, right? But I think it's getting your veterans to play well, use them as trade bait, get more capital, draft capital, or younger players with some upside, focus on next year's draft lottery, and continue to build, because this division, right, if they plan their rebuild right, they can kind of get in when Vegas takes a step back, or when another like they can kind of come up with Anaheim. I think Anaheim's maybe a year or two ahead of them, but you look at the Ducks 2 or 3 years ago, they're kind of where the Sharks are now. So I think, to answer your question, what you posed to Mike, I think they are the next San Jose Sharks, but I think catch them 2 or 3 years to hire a new coach after Quinn leaves, and San Jose will get back to where they were in the early 2010s, where they were just a playoff team every year.
Yeah, and Logan Couture, I think that's a great point. He is going to be someone who's very much sought after. He does have an $8 million cap hit, but he's under control through 27, and he's 34 years old. That's definitely a piece that the Sharks will look to move off of to make some cap room if they want to go make some moves. Hurdle, on the other hand, though, this is a guy who is signed through 2030. I think the Sharks are going to hold on to him right now because he's also south of 30. But, the goaltending, it's not going to be there. The defense isn't going to be there. I agree with you guys. I think this is going to be the worst team in the National Hockey League this year. And mostly it's because of actually something Lindy Ruff said, and it's just the parity in the NHL. Almost every team can go out and win every game. They're competitive. Every game is a battle. Every game is a grind. I think the NHL, in terms of parity and how good every team actually can be, I think every division has 7 teams that can compete. Not necessarily be a playoff team, but they can compete. So on to the next team, though, and this is a team that a lot of people are saying this is the year they need to make the jump. But granted, I feel like I've heard that for quite a while. It's the Vancouver Canucks. They have Rick Tocchet as the head coach. He steps in after a rough stretch for the Canucks. It looked like they were finally turning the corner. Then they, all of a sudden took that step back the last couple of years. They have Quinn Hughes. I believe he was elevated to captain this year, with Bo Horvat leaving via trade last year. They still have, some solid pieces in here. Rick Tocchet had the team playing well. I think they have a solid goaltending tandem in Thatcher Demko and Casey DeSmith. Don't love Casey DeSmith, but he won't have to play as much as he had to with Tristan Jarry as his goaltending partner. But, offensively, they do have some talent with Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, JT Miller's still in town, Anthony Beauvillier's here. Nothing really that's going to jump out at you and make you think, oh, this team is really dangerous. But what do you guys think Rick Tocchet is going to do with this team? Because I think that's where a lot of the noise is coming from. A lot of people think Rick Tocchet's going to get this team back to the playoffs. Do you agree?
I do agree. I think Vancouver makes the playoffs. I think they sneak in. I mean, they only missed by 12 points last year, and they had that whole turmoil in the beginning of the year. I think guys that go, are really underrated are like Andre Kuzmenko. He's a beast, and he turned it on late in the year. Connor Garland's another player.
I mean, Kuzmenko scored 39 goals last year.
Yeah, I know, and like he doesn't get talked about enough, at least from what I read and see on Twitter. Following the hockey people I follow, it's like what it's like. They have a lot of talent there, and I think the coach is going to bring out the best in a team. When you have a good coach like Rick Tocchet and a good players guy, but like a good mix of hard nose, he gets the best out of his group. And when you have young talent mixed with some veterans, like a Teddy Bluger, I think was a great ad down the center depth. Like I just think that Vancouver is going to sneak into the playoffs, and a couple of the games they lost last year, close ones, are kind of like their slow periods of play. They're going to avoid those from last year, and they're going to improve, and they're going to sneak into the playoffs for sure in this division. I'm confident in that. I like Rick Tocchet.
I'm going the opposite direction, Tom. I think that
Boo.
I'm getting booed off the stage. I'm going the opposite direction though, because I just think that they just don't have enough talent to me to jump teams like in the mid-level, like the Flames and Seattle. I just don't think they have enough talent. Obviously, their goaltending and Demko can only do so much. They have Hughes, they have Pettersson, but at the same time, they don't have enough of these guys on this roster to leapfrog these mid-level teams are also fighting for that last playoff spot, right? And I just think even if they do make the playoffs, they're kind of like a first round exit. But I think this upcoming season will be their fourth time not making the playoffs if they don't. So I just think that if that's another thing that happens, I think they're just tired of being the middle group, and then it's only a matter of time until these veterans ask out and they're on full rebuild. So I just think that's kind of the case here, and I just don't see them being a playoff team. I just don't think they have enough talent.
They do have a ton of center depth over there in Vancouver, though. I was just looking at that. They also remember the other guy they got in that Bo Horvat trade. Not just Anthony Beauvillier, but Atu Ratu. And that was the Islanders' best prospect.
That's your guy. So, I remember when we first started this podcast, you love mentioning him, Atu Ratu.
It's a fun name. It's a fun name to say. But Ratu is someone who, he came up, he played, a bit. He was able to have some good games. He had some numbers. But look, this is a guy who can move the puck. He's young. He can play. And I think he's the reason why Rick Tocchet pulled the trigger on that trade, not Anthony Beauvillier. But I think Vancouver, they'll be good. I don't quite think they're in the playoffs because I think, yeah, they're going to be better than Calgary this year, but I don't think they're going to be better than Vegas, Edmonton, LA, or Seattle. I think that those teams are still.
I think they jump Seattle. That's my prediction. I think they sneak by Seattle. That's what I think.
I definitely don't think that that's something that can't happen. I definitely think that, Vancouver could make that happen. But before we get there, let's talk about the Calgary Flames and another former New Jersey Devil, Yegor Sharangovich. Mike, the Devils were able to pry Tyler Toffoli away from the Flames as they were trying to cut back on salary. Sharangovich heads over to the Flames, where he ends up signing for just $1 million less than what Toffoli is making this year. I know you get control of Sharangovich a little bit longer, but Tom, I could see it in your face right now. You're so mad that the Flames gave the Devils Toffoli.
It's an absolute fleece job, but it's like insane. But
heist of the century.
Oh my god!
Well, that's like Sharangovich was an RFA, and the Devils were like, "Well, hey, you're gonna end up wanting to get $3-4 million. Go, we'll take Toffoli. We'll take a year of Toffoli. That's fine." But look, I think that the Flames, they're going to take a step back this year. I think they're about to end up hitting a rebuilding stage. There's still talent, though. Elias Lindholm, Andrew Mangiapane, Jonathan Huberdeau. That's a really good top line. I don't think Nazem Kadri is great as a second line center, especially when his wingers are Ruzicka and Dylan Dubé. Sharon Govich, Mikhail Backlund, and Matthew Coronado, solid group. Blake Coleman, you're paying a fourth liner $5 million through 27. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think people saw the upside offensively with Blake Coleman when the Devils were relying on him as a top six forward and assumed that he would just always score. It's not the case. He's a fourth liner. He's a career fourth liner. That's what he is. In goal, Jacob Markstrom, solid, but I think it's a step back for Calgary this year.
Talk about getting a promotion for for Craig Conroy, and the first thing he does is ship off to Foley for a less skilled Jared Govich. I love Jared Govich, but I just think first promotional move, is that what you do? I mean, I don't know if that's a good look, but talk about last year though. Talk about how disappointment it was for Calgary as it was, right? I kind of agree with you, Ben. I just think, they're very talented. Their goaltending's okay. But at the same time, I just think that they're always going to be that team that's going to be fighting for that last wild card spot. But at the same time, I just do think they take a step back. I think the momentum from last season, how disappointing it was, I think it kind of relies and goes into the season, especially with some of the moves that they made, because it wasn't too exciting and it didn't make them better. Absolutely. So I agree with you with them taking a step back.
I also think they realized that Jonathan Huberdeau is not Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, they realized that quickly. I think also another thing about this Flames team is it's a tough spot for their first year coach Ryan Huska. I don't know much about him. I just know that it's his first season, and I just think anytime you put a first year coach in this type of position where you have some veterans like you mentioned, Ben, that kind of they want to make the playoffs, right? They're not in there to lose. They're growing their career. They're in their primes. They don't want to be on a rebuilding team. But then you have like youngsters that you're like, okay, we got to get them more ice time. You have to make a decision, and having a first year coach, it's tough on him because it's going to come from the top where it's like, hey, we're going to have to trade some of these guys, and he's going to have to deal with the locker room and all that kind of stuff. I just think Calgary this year is going to be middle of the pack towards the bottom. They're going to go through a stretch where these guys are not going to be playing 100%. They're not going to be giving it their all night in, night out. They're going to want out of Calgary. The first year head coach is going to struggle with dealing with that locker room. And I think they ship off some of their veterans, bring in more prospects, and then he could take a step back, really develop young guys, really use, move Sharon Govich up in the lineup, right? Get guys that just need more ice time, and trade away guys that are just not going to be given it their all, like a Mangiapane, like a Huberdeau, like get them out and start the rebuild this year.
Yeah, and now look, we move on to the next team, and it's a team that I think the only two additions they made were two defensemen. Maybe I think it was actually just one defenseman at this point. Not a lot here for the Seattle Kraken. They're rolling out the same offensive group. The same 12 forwards pretty much, except Pierre-Edouard Bellemare slides in. You have Ty Cartier, who they were able to sign to that entry-level contract, and now he's here. He had a solid he didn't play last year. The Kraken, I know they are excited to bring him in and start him on that entry level. Defensively, you still have Adam Larson. You still have Vince Dunn as that top pairing. They signed Brian Dumoulin. Horrible move, in my opinion. I know, Tom, we've seen plenty of Brian Dumoulin over in Pittsburgh. He is not good. No. Not good at all. 1 goal in 82 games last year, -4, but he did average 20 minutes on the ice. I'm sure Seattle will take advantage of that. I still don't love their coach in Hextall. Philip Grubauer, Joey Decord, solid goaltending tandem. So they should be okay, I guess, in that standpoint. They do also have Chris Drieger, another one that they took in the expansion draft. But I know, Tom, you said Seattle was your team dropping out. What do you think is going to push them out? Is it just how good Vancouver is going to be, or do you think Seattle takes a step back?
I think they take a step back to their expansion year, their first year. I mean, I don't think, losing Geeky and Sprong and Donato, I think their depth took a hit. And I think a team like Vancouver is just going to overtake them. I think that they're going to be a good team, but not good enough to make the playoffs. And I think a team like Vancouver with Rick Tocchet, to your point, I like Tocchet way more than Hextall. So I think the coach is going to play a part in my decision of putting Vancouver over Seattle. So I think Seattle, this is going to be the year. They had a great year, made the playoffs, won a playoff series. It was awesome. They lost some key pieces to their depth that played huge in their playoff series and their season. They're going to have to take a step back, reevaluate like Vegas had to do, and then maybe they'll back in the playoffs next year. But I think this is Vancouver's year, and in my eyes, yeah, when you put another team in, you got to choose a team to come out. And I think Seattle's the team that's coming out and not making the playoffs out of the Pacific.
I think with Seattle, I mean, cool story last year. Obviously, taking the series from the defending champs, the Avs, and then almost doing the same with the Stars. They competed in that series too, right? So it was cool. It was kind of like they were kind of playing with house money last season, and they gave their fan base something to look forward to, for years to come. But at the end of the day, they did overachieve, right? And I agree with Tom to an extent. I know I didn't have Vancouver in the playoffs as well, but at the same time, I just think that teams like Vancouver and Calgary, they're always going to be competing for that last wild card spot. So I just think that now that the bar is set so high, Seattle kind of overachieved last year. I think they kind of have like a target on their back. Like you're still the youngest here. You're still the new program. So we're trying to make the playoffs now. It's our turn. I think that's kind of the way it goes. I don't think they're going to have enough gas in the tank to make another playoff appearance and a playoff run like they did last year. I kind of think it was I'm not going to call it a fluke. It was very impressive, but at the same time, I just don't think they will do it again, at least this year.
Yeah, look, it's definitely something that Seattle, I do expect them to move back a little bit, and it's mostly because I don't like Hextall as a coach, but I think roster-wise, I do think that they filled those holes. I think they have a majority of that core group back. Also worth noting, they brought in Kyler Yamamoto, someone who was pretty solid for Edmonton, and if need be, I think can slide in on that fourth line for Cartier. I think Oliver Bjorkstrand, Yanni Gordon, Eli Tolvanen, that's a really good third line. Wenberg, Schwartz, and Burakovsky's a good second line. And Beniers, McCann, and Eberle, while that may not jump out at you, that is a line that really did damage for Seattle, and I think can continue to. I think they're back in the playoffs. I think they're going to get over this coaching thing. They're just going to be a first-round exit last year because they're not going to have that momentum that they had previously. Next team, though, that we have is the Los Angeles Kings, and their big move, and arguably one of the biggest moves of the offseason, Pierre-Luc Dubois comes in, and now the Kings have 2-3 legit lines. I mean, Kopitar, Byfield, and Kempe on the top line. This is a big year for Byfield. He's going to have to really step up. Just 3 goals, 19 assists in 53 games last year. That's not good enough, but he did kind of seem to get comfortable as the year went on. Second line is Fiala, Dubois, and Grunstrom. That's a good group. And then Philip Deneau, Victor Arvidsson, and Trevor Moore on the third line. This is a scary, deep group in Los Angeles. The only issue is it enough to get past the 2 juggernauts at the top of the division right now? Because, yeah, I know they have offense, but Phoenix Copley and Cam Talbot is not necessarily the goaltending group you wanted to throw out there to face the Oilers and Connor McDavid.
I think with the Kings, I think they take a huge jump this year. I have back-to-back seasons, right? They were playoff letdowns, but I just think with the significant changes that they had in this offseason, I think that they're a different team, but that's also a good thing. I think they're going to pull out more regular season wins, get a good seed for a playoff spot. I think they even have potential to actually take this division. I think that's what the moves did for them to advance them and make them that much better. And I think that what separates them from their playoff success too. I think obviously they've been let down in the playoff, but these Kings are always they're always like this dark horse in this division. And I think with these moves, I think that actually makes them a favorite this time.
I love the Pierre-Luc Dubois move. I think he fits into that team perfectly. I selfishly wanted him to be a Ranger, but I just knew the Rangers didn't have the cap space for that. I think I agree with Mike. I think they're going to be a great team. I think they're going to solidify themselves in the top 3. My problem was, to your point, Ben, I don't think they have the goaltending to keep up with the top 2 teams. I really don't. I think they cement themselves in third. I don't think they're even going to flirt with falling out of third. And I think they'll be, 5 to 7 points away from like second, but I just can't get over their goaltending. If Cam Talbot has a revelation year and can play like 2014 Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley can take a jump, I mean, sure, they can win the division because I think they're just so deep and they play just a great style of hockey. But yeah, no, not going to happen.
Well, I have to say this because I got a good laugh out of it. I'm looking also at the prospects for the Kings. And the top one list, I don't know if it's listed in necessarily order, but he is the 51st pick in the 2022 draft. He is 19 years old, a center from the United States, and his name is Jack Hughes.
Interesting.
So, hey, look out for Jack Hughes in Los Angeles as well.
Stanley Cup in 3 years, Jack Hughes versus Jack Hughes.
Yeah, right. Oh, rematch versus LA. That I don't want to see LA ever again. No, look, I think that, defensively, when does Drew Doughty start to take a step back? That $11 million contract eventually isn't going to be, it's going to be handcuffing. Vladislav Gavrikov, solid. Matt Roy is good. Jordan Spence and Andreas Englund are solid pieces. I think Mikey Anderson is really the guy that they're going to have to lean on, especially getting him locked up at $4.1 million through 2031 was huge. They signed him early. They got him at the low AEV. But I think this is a team that stays right around where they are because even though they made some great moves, I don't love Dubois as much as everyone else does. I do think they're better with him, but I don't think he's as good as everyone says. I really don't.
I think, sorry to cut you off, I think that adding Dubois, though, gives them the best third line in the league. Like, I think Trevor.
No, 100%. When
Denault,
you can get Deneau and Arvidsson on your third line is wicked.
Stupid. Yeah.
That is ridiculously good. You can't argue with that. But I think that people are expecting the second line to play as well as the first line, and I don't think that's going to happen. Again, they're a playoff team. They're one of the top. I think the top three in this division are undisputable. The top three are going to be the top three. Speaking of, we go to the team that finished in second last year, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. As long as they have Leon and Connor McDavid, this team is going to be a playoff team and one of the best in hockey. It just doesn't matter. You saw the way it was last year. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid both averaged over 21 minutes on ice per game. In the regular season, those guys were averaging over 20. For a forward, that's unbelievable. But that's what the Edmonton will do if they have to. They will ride those guys as far as they can. And, hey, it's gotten them far, and I think if it weren't for the Pietrangelo slash on Draisaitl, there's a good chance that Edmonton makes it happen last year. But, hey, this group is still good. They, bring back a similar group defensively. They signed a couple of defensemen. They have Darnell Nurse, Cody Ceci, Matthias Ekholm, and Evan Bouchard as their top four. Stuart Skinner in goal, Jack Campbell, the can of soup as their backup. What do you guys make of Edmonton? Better, worse, taking a step back this year?
I think they're about the same. I would argue they're probably one of the best top six forward units in the NHL. Draisaitl, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, Kane, Evander Kane. I mean, it's top three for sure, right? You want to argue maybe the Devils or Colorado.
How about Connor Brown, who just gets thrown into that top six just because he's playing with McDavid?
Exactly, just amazing. So really, top five is right. What I'm thinking, but I think they are where they are. To your point, Draisaitl, McDavid, two of the best players to play this game. They're always going to be. It's like having a great quarterback and a great wide receiver. You're just always gonna be able to move the ball. The Edmonton Oilers are just always going to score the puck, and because of that, they're just going to win more games than they lose. And they're gonna be. I think they finished second, just to give a prediction. But yeah. There's not much for me to say. I don't think they got worse. I don't think they got better. I think they just are what they are, and they're a great hockey team with great players, with superstars.
Well, now it is time for our favorite part of the episode, making Mike pronounce a name.
Woo!
This is one of the guys.
My God, I don't even know if I can pronounce that name.
What the hell is that, Ben? I'm not going to say that.
So this is a Finnish defenseman who is expected to make the roster for Edmonton. But he is likely not going to be in the starting lineup.
And after Mike tries this, I want to try this because I don't even know if I'm going to be able to.
Let's
I'm gonna have a fucking spasm pronouncing this thing. Marcus.
There you go.
Yeah, I know that part. Thank you. Marcus Niemelainen. Nielamian.
All right,
All
I
right,
got
Tom.
Marcus Niemelainen.
Niemelainen.
Niemelainen. That's so much more simple than what that looks like. Holy
I know.
shit.
It's those fucking dots. He's got 3 dots in his name.
Well, yeah.
Look, they're like all right, like the 2 dots over the A and then next to an I. So yeah, it's
Niemelainen. Okay.
Marcus Niemelainen.
Niemelainen.
But yeah, so sorry about that, Mike. Let's
Thank
hear
you.
your thoughts on Edmonton, though.
Thanks for I always look forward to being embarrassed on this show. It's my favorite part. I just mess it around, but Tom is exactly right. I have in the same position that Tom's talking about. Like you talked about the top 3, being solidified in this division. Obviously, the Oilers are always going to be that, and that's because of McDavid, Draisaitl, and company. This team is so talented. They're must see TV, right? Of how good they are, from the talent they have. But at the same time, I don't think they got better. I don't think they got worse. They are who they are. I just think for their success to even have a chance on another postseason run, because we've just been waiting on it for so long now. I think they just have to get home ice advantage, in this regular season to either get that long run, because if they run into the Knights or the Kings in round one, they have round one, they have another risk of taking a step backward and for the second straight season and not making it far in the postseason, right? So that's just kind of it for me with the Oilers. They're obviously they're must see. They're so talented. You can always depend on them to be in the top 3 in this division. But at the same time, with their postseason success, like when is it going to happen? And I just think they need that home ice advantage for it to take that step forward.
Yeah, I think Edmonton, it's one of those things where McDavid has to prove he can get there. And you know what? At the end of the day, Jack Eichel last year proved that he can win a Stanley Cup. McDavid did not. And I think that is actually really, really fitting for the storyline, the way that Eichel has always been the second fiddle to McDavid, the way they were drafted. Now, like
Connor McDavid is Mike Trout of the NHL.
I mean, it's not too far off to say that.
Yeah.
It's not too far off to say
that. At least McDavid's available.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that is true. But we are going to move on to Jack Eichel's team. Now, the Vegas Golden Knights, offensively, Eichel, Barbashev, Marchessault on the top line. Howden, Chandler Stevenson, Mark Stone, second line. Paul Cotter, William Karlsson, Michael Amadio, third line. William Carrier, Nicholas Roy, and Keegan Colasar for the fourth line. Defensively, they're set. Alec Martinez, Alex Pietrangelo, Braden McNabb, Shea Theodore, Nicholas Hagen, Zach Whitecloud. Whitecloud is currently hurt. He's week to week with an upper body injury. So right now, Caden Korsak is someone who could draw in there as well. But Aiden Hill, Logan Thompson, the goalies. Logan Thompson's supposed to be healthy, but it looks like they're going to roll with Aiden Hill after winning the cup for them last year. Why not? Guys, is Vegas going to repeat as division champs? The roster is not too much different, to be honest with you.
Yes. I had them repeating as division champs for sure. And I think Vegas, if you want to, in a hockey sense, you want to say defense wins championships. I think you could say Vegas's defense wins championships. Everything about the NHL is fast, quick. I mean, they could score, obviously. They have the talent up front to score and be fast and play that game, but they just shut teams down. They just have the ability to hunker down if they.
Bruce Cassidy's been given a roster.
And that's where I was getting
built
to.
For him.
Yes, it was the perfect hire. I mean, the Boston Bruins might hand the Vegas Golden Knight a dynasty. I mean, it's that true because the players that just fit Cassidy's system, and I could see this being just a run where every year they're in the Western Conference Final or they're in the final, like the Tampa Bay Lightning with John Cooper. I mean, that's what Bruce Cassidy meant.
Honestly, like maybe even like the Anaheim Ducks of us growing up. Like,
remember
they won a cup early, but then they were always back in the conference final, like every year. Yep. I feel like that could be Vegas.
I agree. They're winning the division. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I'm right there with Tom. You can't argue that this Knights team is definitely going to repeat, especially in my opinion. I just think that what makes this team so good and what's crazy to me is like they didn't have a perfect season last year by any means, right? Like to come out and be first in that division, they had a lot of problems, a lot of injuries, and he still found a way to win this division. I think that's what impresses me the most. Now they're at full health. Now they're at full strength. They just came off a cup. They have all the momentum. I just think that this is their division to lose. I just think that they're going to raise the bar in the competitive play. We could definitely see them be repeating as division winners and obviously in the conversation for another Stanley Cup. This team is very talented. Like you said, it's a match made in heaven with Cassidy being there because it is the perfect team for him to be successful, and we're seeing it.
Kudos to the
Yeah.
NHL with their expansion draft, man.
Oh, seriously.
Vegas
I
was
think
a
they
home run. And same thing with Seattle, but Vegas was just
Mhm.
a home run. Any other league looking to expand has to take a page out of the NHL's book. For
No,
sure.
I think they did great with both of them. But, to your point, Mike, I think, when you look at Vegas and, everything that they've done and, what they can do and where they can get, but how they hadn't had a perfect season last year. The three of us consistently had Vegas as the fourth ranked team in our power rankings. We had three teams in the East consistently. The Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes, New Jersey Devils. Consistently, all three of us had them above Vegas all year when we were doing those power rankings. So, yeah, it's not like, Vegas was a team that dominated all year. They definitely had their moments and they had to prove themselves. But now let's just go in. Let's just give our playoff teams. Tom, we'll start with you. Who are the playoff teams coming out of the Pacific?
Vegas, Edmonton, LA, and Vancouver.
Mike.
I got Vegas, Edmonton, and trying to think here. I'm trying to think.
LA.
about
I
one
know you got LA in there.
Yeah, and LA. I was just trying to be special there. Yeah, you're right. It's gonna be LA. I think but I just think it's the three of them. I don't think another one comes out of it.
Oh, okay, Mike. Okay. I'm going with 4. I only took 4 out of the Central, so I'm taking 4 out of the Pacific. I'm going Vegas. I'm going Edmonton. I'm going LA, but I think Seattle gets back. I think Vancouver is still a year away. I think they're going to be better enough where, Tokic's job is safe, management's safe. They've seen the turnaround. Quinn Hughes is set in stone. He knows this is where his future is. They're able to re-sign guys like Beauvillier because they know the future is bright in Vancouver. So I do have, Vancouver missing this year. I think Seattle gets in, but Vancouver is one of those teams that could knock off, let's say, a Vegas or LA or maybe even Seattle the year after. But that is going to do it for us here on the Outsider Sports Hockey Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe the video if you like watching. Make sure you join the community, comment. We'd like to respond, interact with the community. Follow us on X, Outsider Sports 3. Check out the website, outsidersports.net. Hockey season, it's getting underway this week. Let's get ready to go, and we will see you guys for our weekly scheduled episodes.